Welcome to Brew Crime, the podcast where we drink brews, talk crime, conspiracies, or whatever catches our attention. This is Mike, and for today, my co-host
is Jen from our True Crime Podcast. Hi, everyone.
Yay!
Yay. It's been a long time since I've been on this show.
Not well on the official
On
show.
this one, on the official show.
Brew Crime news, lots, but not this for a while.
No, for a very long time, like a year, I think.
It's been probably, yeah. Well, JT wasn't able to make it. There's been some scheduling snafus, so we got Jen instead.
Yay!
And we're starting our new theme, which is bullying.
Oof.
So I think Jen has watched a TV show about this case. It's when bullying leads to brutal murder. This is the story of Reena Virk.
Oh, this one's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking. Yes, I did watch the Netflix. I think it was Netflix show. I think it was. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was
Hulu.
Netflix.
Netflix
oh no, it was Hulu.
Hulu.
Disney Plus around the world and Hulu in the States.
Really good. It was
I've
really
watched I can't remember 3 episodes I think of it so far.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to stop because I was writing this and can't use that as a source at all.
No, because it's made for TV, so it's based on
dramatized.
it, but they don't use right.
And even the book was dramatized quite a bit, and they used false names for all but 2 of the perpetrators because you can't legally say their name in Canada because they're
really
protected.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Well, I know Lily Gladstone, who plays like the police on there. Phenomenal. She was good. So good in that. So good. So she was in Flowers of the Moon, or I hadn't seen it. The Osage.
No, neither have I.
Osage Indian or something like that. What was it?
I'm not sure. I haven't heard of that one. I think she's been in some other stuff too.
Let me see. I'm sure I got that wrong. Killers of the Flower Moon is what it is.
Okay.
It's with Leo DiCaprio. It was a Martin Scorsese movie. It's set in Oklahoma, and it focuses on a series of murders of Osage members and the relations in the Osage Nation after oil is discovered on tribal land. Oh, say it ain't so.
She was also in Reservation Dogs.
Reservation Dogs?
Yeah.
I didn't see that one. I've seen Reservoir Dogs. Good. I love
Reservation Dogs is really good.
So is Reservoir Dogs. I love it.
It's
one of my favorites. I know. I know. It's my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie, Reservoir Dogs.
Okay.
I love it because it's kind of got that dark humor. And the one, have you seen it?
No, I don't think I have.
Oh, you should watch it.
There's so many movies to watch.
I know, but there's one scene where they play is it Stuck in the Middle with You? Stuck in the Middle with You. Joker's to the left of me. Yeah. And it's intense, and it's just so good. It's so good. You should watch it.
I will add that to the list.
And Steve Buscemi's in it, who I love.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's fun.
I will look it up.
My favorite one.
All right. Well, let's get into this.
All right.
Reena Virk was born on March 10th, 1983 in Saanich, British Columbia on Vancouver Island. Her mother, Suman, was born in Canada, but her parents immigrated from India. They were Hindu, but converted to Jehovah's Witness soon after arriving in Canada. Her father, Manjit Virk, was born in India and immigrated to Canada. There was a lot of dramatization in that show, Under the Bridge, and I don't know how much of it was true, so I didn't really touch on it too much. But when he met Suman, he agreed to convert from Hindu religion to her religion so they would be able to get married, which happens a lot. Happens a lot. Living in Saanich in the 1980s, the Virk family were a minority 2 times over, as the area was predominantly white at the time, and the Indian population that was there in the Victoria area of Vancouver Island were predominantly Sikh. So, formerly Hindu, now Jehovah's Witness, but also one of very, very few non-white people at the time.
I can't imagine being a teenager and you feel out of place anyway, and your own skin. much less having to deal with all that kind of stuff too.
Absolutely. And especially being a teen girl seems
Oh,
to be more rough for them than teen boys.
yeah, it is. It sucks. Girls are horrible, by the way. Teenage girls are horrible.
It seems that there were only about 3,000 South Asians in the area at the time. It's like in the whole greater Victoria area, which
Oh,
is not
wow.
that many.
Not at all.
I'm sure there are way more now. Rita would have two younger siblings, a brother and a sister. Didn't find much about them online. I'm sure they talk about it under the bridge, but
Not really.
again,
Mm-mm.
don't really want to touch on that. Their names aren't out there very much, so let's just leave it like that.
I agree.
As a young child growing up, Rena was always a very happy person and had a very stable family life. She loved animals and always loved children. She liked children so much that she took a babysitting course at a young age. Some family members would say that they would see her growing up to be a nurse, as she loved to volunteer at the hospital as well. Things started to change for Rena, though, as she got to school age. The Jehovah Witness religion forbids celebrating birthdays and many other events that others would celebrate during the year, making her an other. You know, all of her friends would be having birthday parties, and she wouldn't be allowed to probably go to many of them if they knew about it.
Right.
Then there was the fact that she looked different than the other kids. Also, she didn't fit the beauty standards of what girls and women should strive for, aka blonde hair, blue eyes at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's still that bullshit still thing though.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, I see lots of different cultures like on a sunny day with an umbrella so they don't get a tan because
Right.
they got to look as white as possible. It's bizarre.
Well, my sister-in-law is from the Philippines and they don't like to go out in the sun and
Yep.
get darker because that's what the working class, the people that
Yeah.
work in the fields, they're the ones that have dark skin. So they try to keep the lighter skin. It's
Yep.
classism. I mean, it's a class thing,
Yep.
right?
I knew
Yeah.
a Filipino guy that worked in the trades and he would wear gloves and a hoodie in the
Hmm.
summer so that he wouldn't have a tan. So he went back home to see his family. He could lie about what he did.
Right. Hmm. Yep. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. So all this would stack up and lead to lots of bullying that would build. Desperate to fit in sometime between the age of 12 and 13, it seems that Rena started to smoke cannabis and cigarettes just to try to fit in with some of the other girls. Pretty young to get into that shit.
Yeah, but that's the age that it hits. I mean, that middle school age is the worst. I mean,
Yeah.
it gets better in high school. It doesn't get great in high school, but middle school is rough.
Yeah, I never dealt with any of those issues.
Mhm. No,
Yeah.
I mean, my daughter started getting bullied in middle school, and when we went to the school to say, I mean, the principal said, "Listen, middle school is always rough with bullies, but this year is worse than normal." But he's like, "It's always bad."
Then maybe do
So,
something about it, Mr. Principal.
what do you do? I mean, I don't know. It's
Yep.
horrible.
So she would start to idolize a group of troubled girls that idolized the LA street gangs of the 90s and would begin to dress just like them. She would slowly begin to fit in with the girls a bit and get into more and more trouble.
Mhm.
Many of the girls lived in a group home for troubled teens. A few of them would even talk Rena into moving into the home by reporting that her dad had sexually abused her sometime in 96, which is so awful.
It's so awful. I don't think she knew what she was doing.
Oh,
I
no.
think, you know what I
She's a
mean? She
stupid
didn't know the
teen at the
consequence.
time.
She had no idea the
No.
consequences of that.
Yeah. I mean, at least it doesn't sound like it went as bad as it could have because he could have been just right to prison
No.
and never. Half the time when someone claims
But
sexual abuse, it never leaves you.
no. No, it doesn't. I mean, if they would charge him, I mean, if he gets arrested for it, yeah, it never goes away.
Yeah.
People only hear the bad parts. If when he's exonerated, they never hear that part.
Yeah, they never look at the follow-up articles.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, this was 96, but not the 24-hour news cycle that it is today. So she would be removed from the home, and her father was arrested. At first, she went to live with her maternal grandparents, but she hated the setup and also ended up living in that group home with her supposed friends. She would live in the group home for a time and then renege on her accusations against her father, Manjit. And once the police realized they had no case against her father, as he had done nothing wrong, Reena was allowed to move back in with her parents. So her troubled group of girlfriends were known as the Shoreline Six. It was just their little gang name. There were also rumors that Reena may have stolen an address book from one of the girls and phoned her contacts to spread rumors like she had fake eyebrows and that she had contracted AIDS, which did show up in the show I saw. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like that could be true. Unfortunately for Reena, on November 14th, 1997, it would be a deadly night. She was invited out to a party by the girls in the Shoreline Six. She was a bit hesitant to go because of the rumors, but she decided to head out the party in the end. The party began at Shoreline School on the field in the town of View Royal, not too far from Reena's home. The party would get a bit rowdy and a window would get smashed on the school. And there happened to be a janitor there, so he called the police. Once the police arrived, the party would scatter. Basically, just think of any teen movie in the 2000s. So Reena and a few other kids would end up at a convenience store. Reena would call her mother and tell her that she planned on heading straight home and she should be home in about 20 minutes. But the girls with Reena would talk her into heading down to Craigflower Bridge, where some of the partiers had headed after the cops broke up the main party. There was a small crowd down there, including the Shoreline Six and Kelly Ellard, 15 years old, as well as Warren Glowatsky, 16 years old. I am unable to name the Shoreline Six, as well it is easy to find their names. They are protected under the Young Offenders Act here in Canada. I mean, Wikipedia has their names on it. But
you cannot mention it in Canada.
Nope. I could get in a lot of trouble as a Canadian. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. But like if my podcast, our true crime podcast, would cover it and mention the names, which we wouldn't because it doesn't really move the story forward.
No, it wouldn't be a problem there because you're not in Canada. But yeah, their names are protected under Young Offenders Act, which has like a press blackout for people under the age of, I'm actually not sure what age it is, but for young offenders. The idea is that, they'll go to a juvenile jail and then hopefully get better and then go out and be, live an adult life without having to have that behind them.
Got you.
Yeah, it works sometimes, doesn't work sometimes.
Yeah.
Prison system.
No, I understand that. I mean, you want to try to protect them. I don't know.
Well, I mean, kids can do some stupid fucking shit.
But I think murder is up there, one of those things that maybe they kind of
well, the Shoreline
have their name out there.
Didn't murder her. They beat the shit out of her.
Yeah.
But they didn't murder her. Gotcha. So that's part of, we'll get to that.
Okay, sorry.
No. We'll discuss later why Kelly and Warren were not protected the same way. The Shoreline Six would start the brutal beating of Reena with the girl that supposedly had the rumors told about her putting out a cigarette on her forehead. None of the onlookers helped Reena, while some stuck around to watch. Some just left the scene as they didn't want to have anything to do with the violence. We all know that kids today would film this beating and likely live stream it to YouTube or post it on TikTok, but this was 1997 though, so no one had a cell phone to film it and no way to call the cops.
Mm-mm.
I mean, shit, they'd have to have a camcorder to actually film it back then. The 18s would continue to beat and kick Reena until one yelled for them to stop. She had had enough beating. I don't know who did that. I don't know if it was one of the Shoreline Six, but someone said to stop the beating. All eight would leave the scene and leave Reena horribly beaten. After some time, Reena would pick herself up off the ground and climb up the bank of the gorge and cross the bridge, aiming to find help or get home. Unfortunately, Kelly Ellard and Warren Glowatsky would see her stumble across the bridge and run back over to Reena. This is where the severe assault would turn to murder. They would pick up the beating again and smash her head against a tree. Once she was unconscious, she would be dragged by the two of them down to the gorge again, where they would hold her head under the water until she drowned.
I can't imagine doing that to anyone.
Yeah.
especially when you're that young.
Yeah.
You know what I
I
mean?
mean,
I just
I saw
can't.
fights in the by high school all the time, but it never went past like,
Hair pulling. Well, for
well,
girls, it was like
no,
hair
it
pulling and
definitely,
maybe a few punches.
there was
But the
definitely
boys,
some pretty severe fights, but they would just end by being broken up by teachers or something, and everyone would scatter and it would be done.
no, I never
It would
saw any
never,
fights.
never go to this. They would leave her body in the water and pretend nothing happened. Suman Virk would begin to worry as Reena had not arrived home long after she said she would be home. She phoned the group home that she had been living at before, and they had not seen Reena. Suman would call the RCMP, and they told her she would have to wait 48 hours to report Reena missing,
It's
which is such a
ridiculous.
stupid fucking rule we used to have.
I know. Same here. Thank
Mm-hmm.
goodness it's gotten rid of. Ours was only 24 hours, I think, but still, that's
Yeah. But like
ridiculous. 24,
48
48
hours,
hours
if you don't find them by 48 hours,
for a kid.
yeah, it's usually pretty bad.
Right. Even if the kid runs away, right? You
Yeah,
still, they're not safe. They need to be found.
exactly. So let's take a quick detour before getting back to the narrative. We know that the Shoreline Six were all troubled teens that lived in a group home, but let's talk a bit about Kelly and Warren. Kelly was from a middle class family that was loving and happy. They later could not believe that Kelly could be involved in this violent crime. That was about all I could find about her, really.
Well, I don't think anybody really suspects that
Yeah.
your kid's going to do anything that horrible,
Well,
right?
some kids are pretty bad. Sometimes you can see it happening.
Yeah, but still, you would, I don't know.
Yeah. Warren Glowatsky, on the other hand, had a shit go at life. His parents abandoned him, with his mother being an alcoholic and his father leaving his son behind, just moved away. At the time of the murder, Warren was living on a friend's couch as his father had ditched him to move with his new girlfriend to California.
The bastard.
Yeah. And Warren thought of himself as a Crip. So, the Bloods and Crips. They're not up here, so I don't know why he thought he was one, but
It was kind of romanticized back in the
I guess,
90s,
yeah.
though, with like the rappers and Biggie's or Tupac getting killed and like all that kind of things.
Yeah, Biggie was East Coast, wasn't he? I don't know.
I don't know. I kind of stayed away from all that kind of stuff. I was too
Yeah.
old by then. I was in my 20s, late 20s. So
I just hated rap.
I didn't, yeah. I was never a big rap person.
No.
The movie had him in a gang up
I
there.
think he might have been, like, I haven't got that far on the show. Didn't really read that, but he thought of himself as a Crip. He hung out with the Shoreline Six. So probably, yeah.
Yeah, because I think in the show they showed them beating him up as an initiation to the Shoreline Six.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get back to it. The 8 kids would go back to school as if nothing happened, but of course, everyone noticed that Reena was missing. One of the Shoreline Six would claim that she beat Reena, and some of the kids in school that saw the beating probably started to talk about it. It took some time for the adults to start hearing about the violent attack under the bridge, though. The police would start to finally take the missing child case seriously after a pair of twins called in a tip who lived at the same group home as some of the Shoreline Six. The police began to look at this as a possible homicide at this point. So just from missing case to homicide like that. It would take 8 days after the murder for Reena's body to be spotted by helicopter on November 22nd, 1997. Police divers would recover her body, and her body would be taken to the coroner's office. There they would determine that she had been beaten so badly that even if they had not drowned her, she almost certainly would have died of her wounds. So
Jesus.
It was fucking brutal.
Bad. I mean,
yeah.
The second beating was worse because she was able to get up for the first one, right? And
yeah, exactly.
And they got her. Unreal.
Well, yeah, smashing her head into the tree was probably one of the
end of it.
Worst things. Yeah. Before her body had been recovered, the police had brought in some of the Shoreline Six, and one had admitted to the beating and in turn would turn in all of her accomplices. The Shoreline Six would be tried as juveniles in February of 1998 and would be charged with aggravated assault for the first attack on Reena. They would get sentences from 60 days to 1 year in juvenile detention. The reason we could talk about Kelly and Warren is because of the severity of the crime. Both would be tried as adults of second-degree murder.
Mm-hmm. As they should. Because they were 16, 17, right? Around that age?
They were, where was it here?
I mean, old enough to know better. Old enough to know
15
the
and 16.
consequences. 50, yeah, they're old enough to know
Yeah.
that the consequences of their actions.
Absolutely. Warren Glowatsky would be convicted of second-degree murder in June of 1999. He was given a life sentence for the crime, but as a youth, the maximum sentence had a parole eligibility after 7 years instead of 25. He would get his first chance at day parole in 2004 and would have it denied. During his sentence, he would find out that he had Métis ancestry, and he opted to participate in restorative justice program, including Indigenous healing circles. This is something that is allowed under Canadian law for Indigenous peoples only. At one of these sessions, Reena Virk's parents were there to witness. He personally apologized for his actions and explained that there was no particular motive for the attack. While in tears, the Virks accepted his apologies and they would hug him. They decided that it was better to forgive him than stew in anger. So when his next day parole hearing came up in July of 2006, he would be awarded unescorted absences from jail, and the Virks would not contest this decision. In June of the next year, he would be given more day parole. Warren would be given full parole in June of 2010, and it seems like he's kept himself out of trouble ever since, which is good. And you know what? If you have made yourself a better person and the family is okay with it, as long as you're not a danger to society, then
right.
It's what we're supposed to do with prisoners.
Yeah, the reform thing.
Yeah, reform and let them out.
Yeah. Did he ever say why? I mean, in the show on Hulu, it was pretty much his anger over his father and his life kind of came out.
I didn't find anything like that. So
yeah,
I think it was probably he just joined in because he was friends with the other people. Kelly Ellard, now known as Carrie Sim, is a different case. She would have to stand trial 3 separate times with one conviction overturned and a hung jury in another one. The last trial would be in April of 2005, and she would get the automatic life sentence for second-degree murder with no parole before 7 years again because of her age. The BC Court of Appeals would overturn the third trial as there had been a mistake in the original trial. But the Supreme Court of Canada would overturn that appeal, though, 8-1, and she would head to jail. She would get pregnant for the first time in a conjugal visit to a prison pen pal named Darwin Donovan in 2016. Kelly would not get day parole for the first time until November 2017, as she would never admit guilt. She would have day parole extended in October of 2018, but have it suspended in August of 2021. As part of her conditions to being out of prison on day parole, she was not allowed to use drugs or alcohol and would have to notify authorities of any romantic partners or any domestic violence issues. So she would have the day parole rescinded in October 2021 because she was drinking and she did not report domestic violence with her now former partner and the father of her 2 children. In May 2022, she waived her rights to a parole hearing, and while the board still reviewed the case, she was not given parole. As of April 2024, she is back on day parole after finally showing some remorse and empathy for the victims. She was quoted as saying about the new Hulu series, a quote, part of this is about her. You said the series is disrespectful to the victims and her family, and that Index's offense was so horrendous that it would re-victimize the family. So she is now 41 years old and has spent more time in prison than outside. And while she has been given day parole, she is still looked at as a high moderate risk of future violence. So Reena was a 14-year-old girl that just wanted to be accepted. And because of no fault of her own, she became a target of bullying and in the end, murder. This kind of senseless hate and violence has to stop. It's just makes no fucking sense.
No, none at all. It seems like it's worse today because with the internet and social media, that the kids don't even get a break. Like you used to just get bullied in school. Well,
Yeah.
now you come home and you still get bullied. I mean, it's
Yeah.
never ending.
I I don't blame parents that don't allow their kids on social
Mm-mm,
media. I really
mm-mm.
don't. And I mean, I know all those kids still go on social media, but I don't blame parents for trying.
It's bad.
I'm an adult and it's bad.
Hmm.
So before we can finish this case, I need to bring up the fact that after Reena's murder, her parents, Suman and Manjit, got into anti-bullying advocacy work. They traveled across Canada doing speaking engagements at schools, youth camps, and even criminology classes. Here are some quotes. In one video clip, Virk described her daughter just wanted to be friends with everybody and accepted. But she said there were some mean kids in school who would make fun of her and tease her. And so she'd come home from school all upset. Suman Virk's willingness to touch the darkest, most horrific side of her life so that other youth could be inspired to change the world around them showed such strength of character, said the Victoria Police Sergeant Paul Brooks. Another quote: she talked of forgiveness and moving forward with grief. She was such a great example of how to channel tragedy into something more positive. In 2009, Suman and Manjit would receive the Anthony J. Almay Award for Distinction, which is the highest honor in British Columbia that recognizes contributions to community safety. This is a quote portion of the text from the National Post story. The award noted not only the Virk's anti-bullying efforts, but also their promotion of restorative justice, the concept that true healing doesn't necessarily come from harsher punishments, but rather from the coming together of criminal and victim, giving them a chance to understand one another and work to repair the harm done. Sadly, Suman Virk passed away in June 2018 at 58 after choking at a restaurant, and her brain was starved of oxygen for too long, and she was left brain dead. She passed away only a few days later. Manjit is still trying to get out and talking about bullying from the sounds of it. And he even worked a little bit with the producers of Under the Bridge. Doesn't sound like he worked the whole time, but he worked with them a little bit. So yeah, that's case of Reena Virk. And shout out to my friend Julie from Victoria that recommended this case a long time ago.
Yeah, you're just getting around to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Camille and I have just recently discussed this on our show about forgiveness and how some of these parents can like forgive the perpetrators of the killers of their children. And I don't know. I don't know if I could do it. I mean, it's amazing that they can.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do it. I really don't.
Well, they never forgave Kelly.
I know, but still, I mean, I don't know if I could.
And I doubt they ever forgave the Shoreline Six.
No, just horrible.
Yes, it is.
Can't imagine. And God love them. But I mean, and I know if you don't forgive people, and I know that it's worse on you for not forgiving. So they
it just
say.
Eats you up, yeah.
Right. But I don't know. I can be hateful. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I can hold a grudge.
And if you take away my most prized possession, which are my children, the loves of my lives, I don't know if I could do it. I really don't.
Well, it's never going to happen. So,
yeah, I know. Better not.
Exactly.
Well, good job, Mike.
Right.
That's something else. They Hulu kind of portrayed Kelly as a psychopath.
Yeah, it sounds like she was
a little crazy.
Not a good person at all.
They also kind of put it that she had a crush on Warren.
Could be. Yeah, everything I read just said they were friends, but who knows? It's so hard to find information about the people half the time. You find out about the crime and everything, but trying to dig into the lives of them can be really hard.
Just on Canadian cases or?
Oh, just in general.
Yeah.
So often you don't get any information about the victims. And then half the time you don't really find out about the perpetrators either. You'll get their name and a tiny little bit of info, and that's it.
And just the crime. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the crime over and over again. Well, thanks for tuning in to Brew Crime. You can find us on all social media platforms at Brew Crime. We have a Facebook group, Brew Crime the Group. If you'd like to support the show, head to patreon.com/brewcrime now. Money goes towards upgrading equipment and making the show that much better. You get one bonus episode a month, as well as early ad-free access to our episode. A shout out to our Patreon supporters, True Crime Nana, Three Beers In Podcast, and the Faves of Our Lives. And Jen, where can people find your podcast?
Anywhere you look, we are on all the major podcast stations. And I want to say hi to True Crime Nana. Hi, True Crime Nana. She's so sweet.
Hello, True Crime Nana.
Hello. Yes, we're everywhere. You can, if you want to get in touch with us, we're everywhere. Just
look up our True Crime Podcast.
That's where we are. We're everywhere.
Woo! All cases in Brew Crime are written by Mike and JT or a writer we credit on the episode, and sources are put into our show notes for each episode. We always want to give credit to the people that research the cases we talk about. Check out our store at tpublic.com/stores/brew-crime-podcast, where you can purchase gear like t-shirts, phone cases, stickers, pillows, and all kinds of other cool stuff. Brew Crime's intro was created by Mike using Creative Commons Attribution licensed audio from purple-planet.com, soundbible.com, and freesoundeffects.com. Logo designed by Ben Greenberg. Thanks for listening to this episode of Brew Crime Podcast. Oh, wait, sorry. I fucked that up. The police would start finally, or the police again,